Hello and welcome back to the DevelUPment Podcast. In this episode, I'm with my middle school friend, Rodd Golshan. He is a general contractor in the Los Angeles area. And in this interview, we talk about everything about GCs, what their role is, how to vet and find GCs. The reason why you're going to want to listen to this episode is because as a developer, you're going to want to see how to see from their mind. And I want to give you insight of how their mind works, how they price their projects out, how they come into a project so that you know how to find the best ones, how to find the best subcontractors for your projects, and so that you can really stay away from the bad contractors and find good ones and get your project on time and on budget. Hello and welcome back to the DevelUPment Podcast. My name is Garrett Vita and I'm your host. Today I have my good friend Rodd. Welcome to the show, brother. Good to see you.
Hey Garrett, happy to be here. How you doing?
Good. Just for fun fact for everyone, me and Rodd have known each other since middle school, so we had class. And so it's been so great to get to know him over the years and to see him grow as a professional. And now we're doing this podcast, so super excited, man.
Likewise, very excited too. Glad to see where things are going with you in your career and everything. So,
For those who don't know, Rodd has worked for some of the largest general contractors in the country and pivoted to working for a developer within the last 7 years. He started as a concrete contractor, but then switched to being a general contractor. In his first year of business, he had previous revenues of seven figures and is looking to 3x that for 2024. In his extra time, he likes to work out, compete in smart races, and connecting with others and finding new opportunities professionally and personally. Awesome, man. Just for a fun thing, which smart races have you done?
so it actually kind of really started. One of my old roommates, he was really into it, and then I'm not a big runner. I've always hated running, even in high school.
Yeah.
And at some point, he's just like, dude, you just gotta try it. It's like competitive. It's like for fun too, and there's obstacles, so you're not really just running. I was like, you know what, let me just try it. So I just did one, and the first one was December of 2022, and then I got like an insane bug on it, and I got like hooked on it, and started training for it competitively. And it just was something to kind of hold me accountable and
Uh,
focus on outside of like work and business. So like all of last year, I pretty much did as many as there were in California. So I think I did four or five,
Great.
of all of different levels. So it's just a good experience. It's a very good community atmosphere. Like you go to these things. I don't know if you've ever done one,
Yeah,
but
yeah. I mean, I didn't do one back in around the same time too. I think we
okay.
did.
I remember him saying that he was doing them with you. And you know how it is, like it's just a community, like it's fun. You could take it as hard as you want or as light as you want. It's just something to say you've done. So I've really enjoyed it. I don't know if I want to still keep doing it, maybe find something else to pursue, but yeah, it's just something that's been keeping me busy too.
Awesome. Yeah, I didn't know they give snacks because some people I saw the race were like packing their bags with snacks. I was like,
Oh
holy
yeah.
crap.
Yeah.
So I was like, oh, that's clever. Shut up.
Yeah, there was one I did in Big Bear that was like a half marathon.
Mhm.
And I didn't carry anything with me, and that race took me like 6 hours to finish. And I
Oh,
was like, the biggest regret was the first 30 minutes. I was like, I should have brought like a backpack with me because this is gonna be a long one. But but
that's
yeah, it's a good experience. I mean, I encourage everyone to try it, and it's just something to do. So
what does the day in the life of a GC look like?
working 24/7 to start off. I mean, typically construction hours start pretty early. So I will wake up usually around like 4:35. I'll try to get my workout in the morning, but as soon as 6 a.m. hits, you start getting the phone calls. And working in construction, your phone does not stop ringing. I got a phone call right before this meeting, and I have to go to another job block, and like after this interview's over. So it's just a lot of communication, a lot of coordination, a lot of calling, coordinating with the suppliers, coordinating with crews, owners. It's just juggling 50 different hats all at the same time, and you have to be able to know that you can't shut it off, but there's ways to control, how you manage it. And so usually during the day, it's a lot of going to job sites, checking on things, planning for things. And then, when I get home in the nighttime, when I have time to finally get in front of my computer, it's more of the administration stuff, reviewing plans, sending emails, things like that. So
Interesting. Do you have an admin that helps you with all the backend stuff, or are you managing that?
most of it's right now is just me. I mean, I really enjoy being really involved and hands-on. I still have the bandwidth to be able to I mean, between me and my partner, we have a partner in the business.
Mhm.
We have the bandwidth to still be really involved on everything.
Mhm.
And until we find a way that we can really systematize everything, we'll just keep doing it that way.
Interesting. Well, that's funny that they mentioned systems. Do you use any like project management apps or softwares or anything to help you guys manage your?
So there's a lot of like construction software out there,
Oh,
and it's really geared towards a lot of like the bigger GCs
mhm.
for large multi-billion dollar projects.
Mhm.
So we kind of started using Monday.com, which is a very common platform for people to use, but it's not so much for construction. I haven't really heard many people use it. But I think what's helped us with it, at least give us the success that we've had so far, I mean, we've been blessed to have a lot of work in the last year, is being very organized. I mean, we kind of sat down and said, what are the common problems that people have with contractors? And it's always, they're not reliable, they don't show up, you can't communicate with them, they always ask for more money. And so we kind of figured out a way that if we can solve those problems, we can walk out the door at the end of the project and have a customer happy and want to do the work for us and refer us to the next person. So using a platform like that has helped us really organized and very scheduled, so we can track things on more of like a data basis and not just trying to remember it in our heads.
That's good. Yeah, I've heard there's so many different types of softwares. I heard people using Slack on the ones too. It's funny
Yeah.
that you mentioned that. Like a lot of the goods and bads of GCs. It's so funny how a lot of like people you will find out the good ones and the bad ones like right off the back just from their communication. Like a lot of people,
Mhm.
like, I've noticed too, is like a lot of people don't follow up or they don't really execute on just like simple communication. It's like, wow, that's interesting. So,
Yeah, it's tough. I mean, the challenge with I think a lot of the contractors is they know how to do the work, and most times they're really good at it. But the problem is that they forget that owners don't really know what they're paying for. Like, most people don't know about construction and the day to day and how things work. And
mhm,
so, like, sometimes that communication doesn't really share well between the contractor and the owner. So I think
mhm,
it's really important for other contractors to, communicate like, hey, this is what I'm doing. You're paying this much, but and this is why you're paying for this, and kind of setting that expectation early so like they understand,
mhm.
how long things take, why things cost this much, and just being as transparent as you can. And they have to also know like this is a business. It's like can't expect me to cut costs just because you want it cheaper. Like I still have to make my money at the end of the day, and I'm providing the service for you. So uh, there's just a it's just a it's a balance of everything. So
Do you have any recommendations on questions we should be asking when we're vetting contractors or subcontractors?
I think the biggest thing is honestly referrals and experience.
Mm,
I think if you're going to ask someone, and this is something that I've learned from my experiences, in construction, it's nothing is cheap. Like the minimum you'll spend at the lowest is $500 to fix a pipe or something. So if someone's going to pay large sums of money, 10,000, 100,000 for a project, you don't want to just go based off someone's word. Even like on Instagram, like you don't want to pay someone to do a job for you just because they had a cool ad. I think it's really important for you to ask the right questions, ask for referrals, have them even show you other jobs that they're doing. And I think, the best way to do it is ask someone that you know personally that's gotten the job done, and has done a good job of it, and use that person as well. It's just kind of building that trust off the bat early versus, taking the risk of giving someone a deposit and then kind of seeing how things go and just hoping for the best. So,
and in conjunction with that, one of the big things with, whether retail or develop or just getting a simple job done, there's always contracts. I know some contracts you have their own contracts, but do you have any recommendations on clauses or things we should add to the contracts with the GCs to protect the end buyer, whether it's developer or maybe someone in retail? So I know usually the contracts are usually geared towards the needs of the contractor.
yeah, contracts. I mean, there's so many different ways that contracts are established in construction. I mean, when you go to larger scale construction or development, you're usually working with some sort of lender or bank. So those contracts can be a little more intricate, and you're submitting, you're requesting for payment based off progress, and you have to submit a lot of proof of progress and things like that. But if you're working with someone as just working on their house or doing this one-time development, um, it's more important for the owner to understand how things are broken down in the cost, and you pay them based on the progress of those scopes of work. So let's say you're doing the foundation, you've done 50% of preparing for the foundation. The contractor wants to request for 100% of that payment, but you have it on your contract schedule that says no, I can't pay you that much yet. You're not there, and that protects you, because who's to say that guy's just not going to disappear and profited off a quarter of the work that he did, and just you never hear from him again. I mean, luckily you have a contract in place, and if he's licensed, he's kind of screwing himself legally. But I think it's important for the owner to first of all do that with payments, as well as establishing a contract schedule, which I don't think a lot of owners are aware of that they should do. And what I mean by that is, you need to understand from the contractor how long he thinks it will take and how long you realistically think it'll take, with doing like your own research. So let's say just a simple remodel of a home, right? It takes 1 month to go from A to Z. You need to have that in your contract saying, hey, you need to be done by this date. And if you can't meet that date, every day that you're behind, you owe me. It's like, as we call it liquidated damages. You owe me $300 for every day you're delayed. So that holds the contractor accountable too. Like, he can't go to other jobs. He's focused on your job, focusing on the quality, not making any errors. Because at the end of the day, every day he's late, he's losing part of his profit, and at some point he could even lose money. So I think those are the two biggest ways as an owner that can protect himself right off the bat. But also, like, you don't want to kind of scare your contractor away by like doing a lot of things where he's going to feel like this guy's going to be on my ass, like he's going to always be calling me, always going to be like trying to scare me and threaten me with this and that. So you have to find like a really good balance where you want him to do well in his business and succeed, but you also want to protect yourself.
Do you see a lot of like GC or owners giving incentives to GCs, for example, like if they meet, they finish the project early or on time, they get, a little bonus or whatever it is?
Sure. So there's certain contracts that, like, for example, there's a owner GC contract called the GMP. Don't remember exactly what it stands for. I think it stands for gross maximum product or price. And what that says, that kind of contract says, hey, you can build this project for $1 million. This is our contract agreement. It's up to you to make it $1 million. If it's over budget, hey, that comes out of your pocket. If it's under budget, let's say it comes in at $900,000 total cost. That $100,000, we can split it as an incentive for the GC, because you saved $100,000 for the project for me. So that's your incentive. You can get half and I'll get half. So that's a good way for like a general contractor to actually want to work really hard and really efficiently and try to find ways to cut on their costs. And doing that, you have to, submit all your invoices and your subcontractors' requests for payment, so that you're tracking on a budget, like how much is really being spent on this job.
Would that GMP be like an added clause to the contract with the GC, or is that like a separate own contract that has all the GC contracts?
So like on a contract like that, GMP, it'll be a part of your contract. It'll be like an exhibit, right? I mean, we can have exhibits, like even like the contract schedule. So like, let's just focus on budget. So you can say, here's your $1 million and here's how much anticipated cost for each scope of work. And that sum is $1 million. So let's say concrete is $100,000, but when the contractor found his concrete subcontractor, when the general contractor found his concrete subcontractor, he came in at $150,000. So he's over budget, right? So on your schedule of values of all the trades and the scopes, you can say, oh shoot, I'm over $50,000 here, but maybe I can take away from, the electrician's, scope of value and move that budget to concrete. So we're realigning all the budgets, but hopefully at the end of the day, we're still at $1 million at the bottom line. So I don't know if that answers your question, or it might be a little confusing, but yeah.
As part of GC, your role is to really coordinate a lot of and find subcontractors. So how do you find and keep good subcontractors?
Finding them, there's many different ways. I mean, there's the Blue Book, which is a really common way for people that don't have anyone for a certain trade to just go online. It's like a public data, it's like a database that you can pay for, and find all registered contractors. Typically, it's just 3 years of experience, finding people that you've used on other jobs that you've worked with, asking other people that in the industry, like, hey, do you know a good this and good that? And believe it or not, like as a GC myself, I've talked to other GCs and say, hey, do you have any like good, electricians or painters or drywall guys? And believe it or not, like we'll share those contacts, because if our subs know that we're giving them more business, they'll want to still work with us because they know that we're helping their business. And vice versa. Like if one of my subs gets hit up for a big job, he'll say, hey, call this person. So finding them, there's so many different ways. Keeping them, it's just a matter of good business and good ethics. Like for our guys, we try to keep the same guys always busy, because if they stop feeling that they're busy with us, they're going to stop prioritizing our jobs.
Mhm.
So like our drywall guy, he's always working. He's always working. But if he feels like we're not going to giving him any more work, he's going to go find someone that's going to keep him busy as well, and probably put our jobs less under the radar. Um, so keeping them, there's a lot of important aspects of it too, and just treating them right, not agreeing to a cost with them and saying, hey, no, I'm actually going to pay you this much because you kind of did this and that and this. Um, so there.
Have you, what technologies or new innovations have you seen within the construction industry?
Um, I mean, there's a lot of new tools out there, whether it's equipment that's, more efficient to use. Um, there's a lot of good platforms. I think one of the biggest things, at least on administrative side, is using like platforms, like Procore is a big one. It's probably one of the biggest ones in the industry. And it's pretty much gathering all different platforms and putting it under one single platform. So like, how would I say this? So like instead of having your schedule on Microsoft Project, you can have your own schedule on Procore. So you're not gathering different information on different platforms. So it's all in one central database where everyone can access it, not even just the GC, but like you can give access to your subcontractors for certain things. You can give access to the owners for them to see the budget or any change orders or things like that. So I think the platforms for construction like data and project management has gotten really better over the years, because before, I mean, 20 years ago, everything was on paper, and
Yeah.
you had plans on paper, notes on paper. So I mean, we've come a long way over there. As far as like construction equipment, I mean, there's always new things out there. And it's honestly, sometimes it's not even really implemented. You'll see something really cool, and then a year later, like it's not even really implemented, because I feel like in construction, things or technology kind of implement really slow, because no one really wants to take the risk of paying $5,000 for this equipment if they don't know if it's going to be worth like the return on investment. So like it's a little bit of a harder transition for new technology and things in the field to really change.
I know like one of the like I guess innovations one call is that like people are trying to switch from stick builds to like different types of material, whether it's hemp. I know there's some kind of material called I don't know what it's called, but like they're kind of like Legos. Have you guys seen those types of more technologies more recently too? Because I know those can be more expensive, but
I mean, there's a lot of different types of building methods. Like I've seen in LA, especially with like low income housing, that a huge boom in Southern California. Um, like these shipping container builds. I've seen some of those in LA, and that's supposed to be more cost efficient. Whereas if you're building a multi-family apartment building, let's say 100 units, what you would build for $300,000 a unit, you get these prefab shipping containers shipped to the States from wherever they come from. And then, now you're building for 200,000 a unit. So you save $100,000 a unit by having it already built out. And all you got to do is do your finishes and your tie-ins for all your MEPs. So that there's different methods being applied, as far as if it's going to stick. I mean, we don't know yet. And the problem is like with new methods in construction, the challenge is like that no one's done it before, or like only certain people have the expertise of the experience. So that's what I mean. Like it's really hard to stick, because no one really knows how do we look at this? How do we observe that this is correct in the way it's built?
have you ever worked on one of those containers?
No, I haven't personally. I've heard a lot of nightmare stories about them though.
Oh,
Uh,
really? What do you have?
yeah, especially during COVID, when there's a lot of like shipping delays, like
Oh,
projects have gotten delayed. And like I said, because it's not really common, so like if a GC doesn't have that experience of building them, like when they're setting them in place, like there may be certain things that they're not used to that have to happen before, that they didn't account for. So there's a risk, I mean, but there's also a reward to building them, because you can make a lot of money that you didn't anticipate. And also now you have that experience under your belt that a lot of other people don't. So there's pros and cons.
yeah, those are interesting. I've seen so much on like Instagram. Like some of them come out super nice, and some you can't really
Yeah.
tell what it's like. it's actually made from container. So
Yeah. Yeah, some of them, there's some I see off the freeway. Like you'll drive and it looks like you're looking at a wasteland. You just see the shipping containers stacked up as if like they haven't been touched. I'm like, that's not a pretty sight to see, but hey, housing is good in general, for the market. So I'm not gonna really say anything, but it's interesting to say the least.
I saw one here too in San Diego. It was like a whole bunch of shit. It was an apartment complex. I think it was about like probably 20 or 30 stacked up. I didn't really notice it at first, but I was like, oh wait, that door looks like a container. So it was interesting. But I mean, it looks pretty good so far. I
Yeah.
don't know. We'll see how that goes. What are some, I guess, red flags for people to watch out from GCs? Because I know it's so hard to, some people, so I know some GCs don't really have online presence, so it's hard to vet those online.
Yeah.
Do you have any ways to, or any indications of red flags?
I mean, kind of similar to what I talked about. I think like the biggest thing is if they're already communicating poorly with you off the bat and they're giving you a proposal or estimate and they're just showing a flat number or they're texting you the proposal. They're not showing like breakdowns of how much things are costing. It just shows like they don't care, they're lazy. Um, you know, they're probably gonna find a way to cheat or cut corners, things like that. So it's the little things that I think that people should pay attention to, because it'll be very apparent the more that you work with them. And I've had experience of that working with our GCs myself, partnering on projects. Like we should have saw the signs, but think it ended up not being the best partnership, working with someone else. And it's things like that. Like you really have to pay attention, otherwise you're gonna pay for it at the end. And on top of that, like I know as a consumer, you always want to pay the cheapest cost
Yeah.
for a GC, and especially investors, which I totally understand. You have a number that you've underwrote, and that's your budget. But even like for like a homeowner, it's really important to know like what a realistic budget is and are you really flexible? Because if you're going to go with the lowest guy, I mean, the lowest guy sometimes can be, a third lower than what I would propose or give an estimate for.
Mm.
But I always tell people like upfront, like I might not be your cheapest. I don't know if you're, looking for other contractors, but I'm telling you right now, I'm not going to be the cheapest. But hey, you get what you pay for. And when you pay the cheapest guy, you always end up paying for it at the end by doing other additional work or rework or paying someone else to come finish the job. So that's something that I try to warn a lot of people is like if you're really gonna go cheap, you're gonna get cheap. So
Yeah. Yeah,
yeah,
I've noticed that too. It's like sometimes people mess up really bad. I'm like, wow. Because I know for some of my plans, one of my guys I went to for a survey. Oh my God, he was so terrible.
huh.
He was the cheapest, but man, that was the biggest mistake. I was like, oh, should have.
Yeah. The problem is with cheapest is either they missed something in their scope, which is not a good sign because then they're gonna ask you for more money, or they just don't have the experience to price their work right, or they're not getting enough work, so that they're looking just to get any job. Um, which, like I said, isn't those are like not good indicators to want to hire someone just because they're cheap. I mean, hey, if someone's cheap and they're good, you got a good home run on finding someone. So yeah,
Do you have any tips on how to look at plans? Because I know for me, and I know many other people don't have any experience or background in construction, who look at the plans are like, what the heck is this, man? How do you
sure.
know what how much you need for each supply, blah blah blah.
Yeah, yeah. That's a really good question because my experience in construction was very minimal to none when I got into the industry. It took me a very, very long time to understand plans. It all just looked like, a different language to me. And then, one day while I was working for one of the GCs I was at, one of the older superintendents, old school guy, he's like I'm trying to ask him for a question on like how to read the plans, and he just says simply like he's like, dude, it's just a bunch of pictures. You can't read pictures. And I mean, in hindsight, I was like, you know what? That's actually a really true statement. Like, if you just look at it and stop looking at all the words around it, um, and just looking at all the like the comments, the notes, all the little things that are in the drawing, like
Mm,
you just have to, look at it for what it is and try to just break it down. What am I looking at first of all?
mm,
How did I even get there? So, like, if you're looking at a detail versus if you're looking at a floor plan, like those are two different things. Um, so, I mean, at the base, you want to just at least look at a floor plan and see,
mm,
do I understand everything that I'm looking at here?
mm,
Do I understand what this light is, like that circle? Like, is that a light, or is that a fan? Is that a receptacle? Like, how do I know what that is? So it's really just looking at things one at a time, on the surface level, And if they're good plans that your architect did or your engineers did, you should be able to find a reference to what everything is. So then everything should have an answer on the plans. So you should be able to start on page one. Hey, this is referencing a detail which shows me like a cut sheet of what this wall looks like and how it's built, or this cut sheet will tell me what kind of material I need to be using for this, this light, the spec, things like that. So it's definitely years of experience. At the end of the day, like the plans should have all the answers. But that's where experience comes in, because if it doesn't have the answers, like I'm able to vet if there's something missing in the plans, and I need to go back to the architect or engineer and be like, hey, I need clarification on this because you're not showing me a specific dimension that I need here, or something like that. So
Interesting. For like when you're trying to figure out how much you need for each supply, X amount of rebar, whatever it is,
uh,
you just fire and then they'll give you that number, or do you usually calculate that?
as a concrete contractor, when I was doing that work, like I have to at least know my general quantity. Some suppliers, you can give them the drawings and they'll do, the quantity takeoff for you and give you a cost for that. Typically, they always give you more than you actually need. But it's the faster and quicker way to do it. But that's an experience thing. As a general contractor, like because there's so many things I'm worrying about, I'm relying on my subs to do their own quality control of what they need. But as like if we're talking about concrete for rebar, I need to be able to look at my structural foundation plans, look at my footings, look at any grade beams, any of that. I need to out. What I would do is individually, on Bluebeam, which is another software, I'll do a takeoff of each area, calculate the amount of rebar I need, use the spacing that's shown on the plans. So it's a lot of focus and attention to detail because, like I said, a good contractor is very focused on attention to detail, because you can totally miss a whole area of scope, and that's $30,000 just in material that you totally miss, and there goes all your profit. But hey, you know what? Your contractor said you own all these plans and all the concrete for these plans, so that's not my problem, So yeah, doing takeoffs is very tricky, but it requires a lot of attention to detail and experience. So
Good tip. Thanks for sharing that.
yeah.
I know for your I used to do concrete. How do you typically price out concrete? Is it usually price per square foot or
So when I was doing concrete, I was doing a lot of hardscape, and when I reference hardscape, that's more of like just what we call flat work, which is like driveways, slabs, backyard patios, things like that. I had done some foundations until before I started pivoting to being GC. But it's just an experience thing. Like you track your numbers, your historical data. You do a job for a driveway, say, hey, it's going to cost me $13 a square foot. It cost me $8 a square foot. I charge $13 a square foot, and I've done a few of these, so you just kind of have a general idea. If they want to add, some sort of design, how much is that going to add more? So it's just doing the jobs enough to know what it's going to cost you per square foot.
for like a new construction project, what's like the timeline of when a developer or someone who's coordinating GC would be contacting the concrete contractor to come in, do the work, for example? Like
So like your question is, when would I reach out to someone to start getting pricing from
yeah,
like
or like
for a
yeah,
project?
to come in and get their pricing, check it out, and then have them guys come on site to actually do the work, and then how long that actually takes, and then
Okay. Are you asking as a general contractor, or if you're like as an owner who's looking to find all the subs himself?
as a general contractor.
As a general contractor. So the point in which we get the plan submitted to the city from the owner, maybe not ready to issue, but like we have enough information from the plans to get a pretty accurate cost. At that point, I'll go to my subs and say, hey, here's the plans. Can you give me a cost on this? I don't do that for all my subs. Sometimes I'm pretty familiar with the general cost for how much I anticipate my electrician to charge me for this, or painting, simple things like that, finishes. I can typically do that, but like the framing, if there's intricate framing, I'll send it to him. But if it's like an ADU, I already know like, hey, this much per square foot I'm going to charge for this project. So it really just depends on the intricacy of the job.
And that's the most important question. How can our audience get in contact with you?
You can reach out to me. I don't know how you share your interviews on platforms. You're welcome to share my information. We have an Instagram. It's the tag is the handle is at Constructify Builders. Or you can reach out to us if you want to schedule, a consultation just to talk, questions, or you need an estimate. Info@constructifybuilders.com. But yeah, I mean, it's just the normal ways.
Perfect. Thank you. So if you want his contact information, I'll put it in the description below. And thank you so much for listening. And don't forget to check out other YouTube videos for developers and intelligent development. Thank you so much, and we'll see you guys next time.